All right, at the conclusion of the last video, I said we can't actually use the file object to read and write to the file. We need some special classes that are designed to put text in and out. So we're going to be working with text files in this course. So the file object encapsulates the properties of the file, but it doesn't have anything for actually reading data or writing data to the file. In order to perform input and output, that's what I/O stands for, you have to create objects using some Java input and output classes. Those objects contain the methods for reading and writing the data to and from the file. So in this section, we're going to look at how to read and write strings and numeric values to a text file. We're going to use the scanner class to read files, and we've used the scanner class before to read from the console. But we're going to use the scanner class in this case to read files, and we're going to use the PrintWriter class to write files. Let's look at some examples. Well, first let's talk about PrintWriter. Writing data using PrintWriter. Once we create this PrintWriter object, we have all these different things we can do. We create a PrintWriter by giving it the name of a file. We can print a string to it. We can print a character to a file. We can print an array to a file. We can print, so anything we put inside the print method, we can print ints, longs, floats, doubles, booleans. Okay. It also contains the print line methods and the overloaded printf method, so we can print with formatting. Look at an example of this. Here's an example of a small program to write some scores to a file. So here's our main method. Okay, the first thing we do is create the file. We tell it we're going to be managing the scores.txt file. So we're going to be creating this file. So create the file object and assign it to a variable of java.io.file is the type of the variable. Okay. So now that we have this file variable that connects us to scores.txt, we can check to make sure it exists. Why would we want to do that? Because what if something happens and it didn't connect? Now, here's the weird thing. So the first part of this chapter talks about try-catch statements. And there's nothing that can fail more than reading and writing files. Almost everything we do when we read and write files needs to be in try-catch blocks. However, to simplify and to just learn about reading and writing files, we're going to leave the try-catch out now and just assume that everything works. And then I'll show you how to wrap everything in a try-catch file or a try-catch block. So check to see if the file exists. Did we actually get connected to this file object we created up here? Actually, if the file already exists, we want to say it exists and exit, because in this case, we're trying to create a new file, and if it's already there, we don't want to overwrite it. All right, so then we're going to create a file. We're going to say new Java IO PrintWriter. So that the Java input output package has a PrintWriter class. We can specify the file, which is this file we created up here. So this file gets passed to this PrintWriter object. Now the PrintWriter knows about the file that we created up here, and the PrintWriter can add things to it. So here's an example. Output, print, John T. Smith. Output. So output is the name of the variable that we established with our PrintWriter right here. So we can call output.print to print John T. Smith to the file. This is a string. We can put output.printLine, which will print 90 to the file, but since it's print line, it'll put a new line character at the end. And that's an invisible character, but it sends us to the next line. And then we can tell it to print, and here's Eric K. Jones, and it's printing an 85 for that one. And then the last thing we have to do is close it. So I always, and you'll see this when we do an example, there are 3 steps to writing a file or reading a file. The first step is that you have to open it. You have to open it by connecting it and opening it. Then you read or write to it. In this case, we're writing to it. And then when you're done, you have to close it, and you can't forget to close it. If you leave it open, you could cause errors and nobody might ever be able to read it. So open the file, write the file, close the file. One other thing we can do is something called a try with resources. Since so often programmers forget to close their file, starting in JDK 7, which we're way past that now, we have something called a try with resources. And the way that works is you can use a try block, but when you do the try, notice there's parentheses here, and we can create our object inside these parentheses. And when we create the object inside the parentheses, when the try block's done, it will automatically close any resources that we opened in the try block. It's called a try with resources. That way we don't have to remember to close it. And here's an example of doing the same thing. We're still connecting ourselves to score.txt as a file. We're still checking to make sure that the file doesn't exist. And then in the try block, we have open parentheses. And here is where we're connecting our PrintWriter to our file. So we connected in this block. That way, when we're all done, we're writing the same 4 lines of code that we did before, but there's no close routine. When this block is done, the resources that were opened inside this parenthesis and this parenthesis, this resource will automatically get closed if we do a try with resources. And that's pretty popular now that it exists, because they're right. We often forget to close files. If an exception happens, you might miss your file close statement. So technically, file close should have always gone inside a try catch. The close should be in the finally part. But this makes it a lot easier because then now the programmer doesn't have to worry about it. It's taken care of. All right, in the next video, we'll look at reading data using a scanner.